Delighted this week and this evening to look ahead to the Allianz Football Division 3 Football League taking place in 2025 and the race, dare I say, for promotion to Division 2 football, the opportunity to play in the Sam Maguire. And it's a daunting time for all these counties in Division 3 facing into probably what people would call a new game with a whole load of new rules. We're delighted to be joined by an all-star cast of footballers there today who have lit the leading lights of their counties for many of years. We have representation from 7 of the 8 counties involved in Division 3. So the counties involved, we have Leitrim, Kildare, Clare, Fermanagh, Antrim, Offaly, Laois and Sligo. We're only missing Sligo representation there tonight, but I'm sure our esteemed panel of guests will give their fair complexion of Sligo's chances in Division 3. So starting off with our guests, I'm just going to call them out. We have a renowned former captain of Leitrim, a renowned iconic defender who held the centre-back position for more than a decade or more, 13 years in total, Gary Reynolds. From Kildare representation, he played for his county for more than 20 years, winning 2 Leinster titles in 1998 and 2000, an all-star defender as well, played in the 1998 All-Ireland final, Anthony Rainbow. For Clare, we have a Munster winner in 1992, a stalwart forward for Clare many years. His famous goal against Cork in 1997 and also scored in that 1992 Munster final as well, Martin Daly. We have a former captain of Fermanagh who captained his side through the leading lights in Ulster through many of the years when Fermanagh were prominent. 8 years, in fact, the captain, and played for his county for more than a decade, Eoin Donnelly. We've a renowned Antrim forward midfielder, played AFL, was one of the leading lights and a leading prodigy underage for Antrim as well, Niall McKeever. We've a former captain of Offaly and a prominent Tiger defender who played for more than 10 years for his county, Paul McConway. And then we have a leading light for Laois, a midfielder for more than, dare I say, 13 years, only recently retired as well, Kieran, Lillis. Delighted to have you with us all there, with you two guys there tonight. We're going to start off tonight's discussion. We're going to look at these new rules, and we're going to look at maybe the kick out, the forward mark, the discipline rule, the 2-point arch scoring, and maybe the forwards staying inside the 45. And I'm going to come to maybe Kildare first, just down to this division of long time, most years in Division 1 and Division 2, first time down in Division 3. And Anthony, these rules to you, does it make it a new game, an even playing field? And what's the thought amongst Kildare in terms of these new rules? And obviously it's a big year for everyone in Kildare after probably a forgettable year last year.
Yeah, James, I think everybody is probably an agreement that the new rules probably had to happen. The game really had gone into a state where it was losing spectators. Attendance were down last year and on the previous year. And if you look at some of the rules that they implemented for this year, they're quite exciting, especially when you look at the 3v3 up front. I suppose it's trying to stop really the mass defence as such. It's bringing in the one-on-one defending a bit more than it has been over the previous years. So that's one particular rule I'm looking forward to see in this year's league and championship. That the 3v3 up front will probably look back at the old style defending where it was one-on-one. Forwards are going to have a bit more space and time to attack. And that's going to be quite exciting to watch.
And Eoin, if I can bring you in here, for many years going between Division 2 and Division 3, always in the top arches of maybe Division 3 and always in a promotion hunt when you have been there. Served many years in Division 2 as well. And Fermanagh would have been known for their long distance shooters in the past in terms of the Quigley brothers, Conal Jones, but renowned as a really competent, tight defensive unit. What do you make about these new rules about the anti Anthony mentioned about the 3v3 and maybe losing out on probably three defenders in terms of coming back and set up definitely when taking on, especially playing away from home when you have to travel and go on the road in Division 3. And we all know how important it is to pick up points on the road as well as your home games.
Yeah, I think the 3v3 is going to be interesting to see how teams play it. There's still going to be teams who are, I suppose, risk averse, and they're maybe going to keep 4 or 5 men back and still not want to concede too much, especially when they are away from home. So it's going to be, particularly in the early stages of the league, interesting to see what teams are doing differently and who's, so I suppose, a bit more attack minded and who wants to push up the pitch and press high up and be brave, and who's a wee bit more cagey and keeping men back. I suppose Fermanagh probably, yes, we've been between Division 2 and Division 3. We've probably lost a few of those guys that you mentioned there that would have been the long range shooters. So now we're relying on maybe a bit more space inside for a forward. So that might be something that could play into their hands potentially. And it'll be interesting to see how the goalkeepers come in and play a part in that, because we're still going to have those phases of play where teams get 12 men up the pitch, and they have the goalkeeper there as an extra man, and it's going to be sort of picking apart those defenses. So that'll still take a bit of getting used to, where you've got the teams that are a bit slower and you're trying to break them down, and that might sort of take a bit of time to find its feet as well.
Yeah, and if I can come to you, Gary, Leitrim just made the step up to Division 3, always in the hunt for promotion from Division 4. But when you've got up to Division 3 in the past, maybe trying to stay there and establish yourself as a Division 3 side has become tricky, and as well. A new manager in there again, and obviously the players have to learn all these new rules as well with a new camp. Is that tricky with new management coming in, having to learn all these sort of new rules ahead of a new season, and obviously making a step up in standard as well, because there is a bit of a step up from Division 4 to Division 3?
Yeah, it's a major step up, James. And as you mentioned there, the last couple of times we got up there, it didn't prove too successful for us. I suppose, unfortunately, from our perspective, we've been dominated by off the field kind of happenings in the off season. It was well documented. Mickey Graham headed west shortly after leaving Leitrim, and then you had Stephen kind of coming in trying to play catch up, if that makes sense, because we had a good thing under Andy probably in the last 3 years, where we were trending similarly to maybe Sligo in a sense that we were probably a year or two behind Sligo, but we were competing quite well. So if you're looking at how the rules might impact us, we've a young squad, so you'd be hoping they might be able to pick them up a little bit quicker. But probably the 3v3 probably came for us a year or two too late, in the sense that we'll probably be looking to go up into the division, and based on the previous teams that Stephen Poulter would have been coaching, he seems to be fairly defensive in his ways of coaching. So the 3v3 mightn't suit us that much, James, this year, given that you're looking at the names in Division 3 there. We're probably going to be, you'd imagine, favourites to go down, looking at the names that are there and based on previous experience. But look, at the one thing we do have probably in the last couple of years, which has stood us well, is we've a decent set of forwards, probably as good as we've had in a while. Since the likes of Emlyn maybe left, and you've got Ryan O'Rourke there who can shoot from the 2-point arc. Keith Byrne, who wasn't there last year, has committed to playing this year, so that's going to be because he can shoot from anywhere from 50-60 yards out. So a couple of positives there, and I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but the goalkeeper would have been another aspect we'd probably looked at, because we'd sorted that out in the last few years with Nevin O'Donnell, who's a Cavan native. He had been playing in goals for the last couple of years and doing really well, so that rule would have suited him as well. And he can shoot from distance too, as you would have seen last year. I think in the Division 4 final with Leash, he kicked 2 or 3 from long distance. So yeah, look, the odds are stacked against us. Regards to the new rules, probably the one which will suit us best will be the shooting from the 2-point arc, but it's just getting the ball that far might be the problem, James. So look, a lot of work being done in the background. Hopefully a very young squad, and hopefully they're able to take it on board on time.
And I suppose, Kieran, you're the player here, Kieran Lillis, who the most recently retired, and you would have sampled all these changes coming about. You would have sampled the forward mark. You would have seen that coming in and prepared for that in your years. Tell me, as a player, when these new rules are introduced, and as they have been in the last few years, is it quite daunting maybe in the months of December and January coming back to get your head around them and implement them in training in terms of tactics? Or does it take time? Does it take more than maybe 3 or 4 challenge games? And we don't have any pre-season competitions this year around as well. And there's even more rules than what you would have had last year in terms of that. Are you looking at this and saying to yourself, "Well, if I was in the camp this year, how would I have adapted to all these changes?"
Yeah, I suppose like we've had a few rule changes over the years, but nothing as significant as what we're facing into now in a few weeks' time. So yeah, you would have always tried to look at the rules and try adapt and maybe see where you could kind of get a bit of forward momentum with the rules. And I'm sure there's management teams crashing their heads together all around the country trying to see where they can kind of get those marginal gains. I've watched 2 games now just with Laois playing, and you can see that lads are kind of just trying to get used to those new rules. It maybe doesn't look a whole pile different, if I'm being honest, in the two or three games that I've seen. And then there's just silly frees being given away, like lads following back out of the 3-on-3 and giving a 13-meter free away, and lads getting used to the 50-meter penalty as well. There's a few of those, so it'll take an awful lot of getting used to, definitely. And yeah, like Laois are going to have a hard division. It's a hard nut to crack, and I'd be hopeful now that we can make the rules work to our advantage.
I suppose when we're talking the 2 counties left, 2 glamour appointments in terms of managers have come on board in these 2 counties over the off season. Mickey Hart coming involved with the Offaly footballers, and Peter Keane coming involved in the Clare footballers, and Paul McConway as well. I suppose we've seen what Mickey has done in terms of loud football, in terms of where he's taken them on the sort of journey. Is there hopes are high in terms of Offaly, and he's always come in and tried to build a structure first of all. And I suppose, do these new rules hamper the way that he likes to sort of play football? Do you think it's going to take time for Offaly to get used to that?
Yeah, look, I suppose we probably the most innovative manager in the division. And if you wanted anyone over your team, it's probably Mickey Hart, given what he's done over the years. I suppose the problem for Offaly is that there's been a large turnover of players in the last year or two. Even this year, they've lost an awful lot of senior players. So while on the one hand we have Mickey Hart, we'll probably after losing a few key players, that's going to hinder us going into Division 3. As the lads are saying, it's a very tough division as well. And I think starting off in your first couple of games, that's going to be the most important thing, especially for Offaly. The Sligo first up. If they lose that, they're in a bit of bother. They have to go to Laois, I think, then the next game. So your first couple of games are going to be massive. The flip side to that is everyone's getting used to the rules as well. So it's very hard to actually know what's going to happen.
I suppose, Martin Daly, coming to Peter Keane's appointment. And last year we saw a mass exodus of the Clare football panel. An awful lot of established members left the panel, and dare I say they were unlucky, pipped by a goal, an offside goal, square ball goal, dare I say, against Westmeath, denied them a promotion with a very young team. But dare I say, Peter Keane's been uplifted by some high profile names coming back into the squad. Long range shooters like Keelan Sexton, Owen Cleary back with Clare this year, big names. When you look at that, does maybe the 2 point arc rule going to suit Clare in terms of these guys' abilities to kick points from long distances?
Yep, as you say, last year was a new year for a lot of new players for a young squad, and thought Mark Fitz did a really good job last year with them. We went up to Down, and if we had a win against Down, we would have been promoted. I think it was probably a year too early for our squad to go up to Division 2. But now we have a new manager back in again, which kind of upsets the momentum, I suppose. Great experience, obviously. It's great to have somebody like Peter Keane coming involved with Clare. It's great. we needed a couple of new players back, or a couple of experienced, should I say, players back. So it's great to see Keelan back, great to see Eoin back, and they're going to be very important. The arc, as you call it, in the 2 point scenario, I think we're lucky to have the likes of Emmett and Owen Cleary. They'll be a huge addition to that 2 point arc rule. But like as the boy said there, I think to make use of that arc, I think it's going to have to be a lot of fast transition. I think to use the 3 men up front is going to be vital. As much now as we want the scenarios to work and the new rules to work and stuff, there's going to be plenty of negativity trying to find um, things to break them down to. At the end of the day, you're still going to have 11 players behind the ball. If it's not going to be moved fast enough, is the 2 point opportunity is going to be cut down if it's not moved fast enough. So it's going to be a lot of trial and error, I'd say, with a lot of teams. I think there's going to be a lot of teams trying to find their way over the next 3 to 4 games. Most teams have had only probably 2 or 3 challenge matches at max. Apart from that, all they're trying to do is work in-house games. So it's going to take a bit of time, I think, before everyone finds their feet with the new rules and what's going to work and what's not.
I suppose coming to Niall McKeever in terms of Antrim, Andy McEntee is beginning to find his feet. Job one would have probably to establish yourself as a Division 3 side to maintain your sort of status. You've done that. You've sort of build on that. And a fairly, I would say, looking back in last year, it was a campaign. If one or results and your in games had gone your way, you would have been in the promotion mix. So dare I say, is it looking forward now and taking the next step for Antrim? And these new rules, with a team making progress like Antrim, in terms like you have been making steady progress, is it back to square one in terms of starting again? Has that bit of momentum been lost in some ways?
Yeah, I agree with the rest of the lads there. I think it's a very competitive division. I think Antrim's goal this year will be again to maintain that Division 3 status. I think they're riddled with injuries, and have one of the positives to take from this campaign is that they are going to reintroduce a couple of those senior personnel. Connor Stewart missed last year with an ACL. Ryan Murray missed last year with an ACL. Rui McCann, who would be a primary focus point for Andy's style of play, missed a lot of the league campaign. So reintroducing those players will be critical. Look, Antrim will always be competitive. They've stabilised the division. They've got an excellent manager who's hugely experienced. So look forward to the campaign. The new rules will throw a spanner in the works. I think the first couple of games will be interesting just to see, if there is a change of style of play. I think that all the teams will come with that structured defensive approach still. I don't think any of the teams will lose that based on the style of play over the last 10 to 15 years. But from an attacking perspective, it'll be interesting to see if, is the space created? Are there more goal opportunities? Do we see more scores from play? So, yeah, looking forward to see the first couple of games and see how the lads get on.
And it's important just to note in terms of Sligo as well, great work being done by Justin McNulty. We had Sligo Connacht champions for the first time, defeating in club football, defeating powerful teams like Ballina and Mayo, Pierce's in Roscommon as well. Good underage production, winning minors in the last few years and under 20. So is it fair to say as well, an awful lads just on Sligo as well, a team that's been building very close in terms of the Tailteann Cup in the last year or two, probably played down, and probably what was the game of the year when many people would have said there was that game between Dom and Sligo would have bettered a lot of games played in the Super 8s in terms of standards as well. So Sligo are definitely going to be in the shake-up as well. Is that a fair assessment? Yeah, full nods in terms of that as well. So, guys, I just want to move on now, and I'm just going back to Anthony. In terms of Division 3 and Division 2, and last year, Kildare got a taste of the Tailteann Cup, and obviously, many people in Kildare would say Sam Maguire is where it's at. That's where they would to be playing the top elite counties as well. But given the way it's structured in Division 3, even if you get promoted unless you sort of win that final, there's no guarantee with sort of teams and placings that we've seen with Clare in the last few years. If they were drawn on the opposite side of Cork and Kerry, they've got to the Sam Maguire based on that. Is that something Kildare are looking at to say this? We really need to attack this division, and it's not really enough maybe to get promoted. We need to be winning this division to sort of make sure we have Sam Maguire football. We've seen the likes of Meath fall into that pitfalls, and maybe in terms of Division 2 that you need that sort of certainty to win it in terms of and I suppose Kildare deem themselves to try and be playing Sam Maguire.
Yeah, I suppose we're coming off the back of a disastrous year last year. James got relegated from Division 2, didn't get to a Leinster final, so put us down into the Tailteann Cup for 2024. But Brian Flanagan has gone in there now, and very like Sligo, he's a very, very young panel. Brian would have been involved with the Kildare under-20s the last three years. He's got the 2 All-Ireland finals, winning one, beating Sligo in one, and unfortunately Tyrone beat him in the first one. So Brian is probably going to be relying on a lot of those young lads that he would have had for those 2 years, the likes of James McGrath, Jack McKeever, Colin Dalton, Ryan Sinky, Cormac Barker have all been introduced into the panel. If you look at some of the guys, Shane Farrell, Callum Bolton, Ryan Burke, Luke Killian and Harry O'Neill have been on the senior panel in the last 2 years. So they're just probably 11 or 12 players that Brian has in on his panel this year that he'll be sort of dipping into as the trusted players that he would know from his under-20 stint with Kildare over the last couple of years. But when you look at it, the basic fundamentals going into the league really are your skill level and are your fitness levels right. And he's 2 very tough games going into Division 3. He's got Fermanagh in Newbridge, and then he's got Sligo away. Fermanagh beat us last year in Fermanagh in Division 2, and Sligo ran us very, very close 2 years ago in the All-Ireland series down in Markievicz Park. We were lucky enough to come away with a draw. So they're 2 very tough games to start the campaign off for Brian. So if he gets the fundamentals right over the winter, which I'm hoping he's done, hopefully he can get 2 wins, and I suppose that brings a bit of positivity around the team. Gives 4 points in the bag, and they've started the league campaign off very, very well. But like you said it there, and all the lads have said, it is a very, very competitive league. And it'd be very, very interesting to see how things go. If they don't get out of Division 3, which I'd be surprised if they don't, they certainly are sort of in the right end of the draw for the Leinster Championship. Maybe if they get to a Leinster final, there's still that, avenue for an All-Ireland series.
And I suppose, Owen, in terms of Fermanagh, in terms of Division 2, they probably will deem themselves unfortunate to be relegated, while Kildare had a disastrous year. But in terms of Fermanagh, they were in so many games, tight games, that they came out the wrong side of result. In previous years where Fermanagh would have nipped them by a point or two, last year they lost them by a point or two. And I suppose you mentioned their experienced players have dealt the time. Is maybe this side going down to Division 3 that bit more youthful than previous Fermanagh teams who would have more experience to make that the bounce back, the step up? Is this a younger side that mightn't have tasted this experience in terms of relegation in the past?
Yeah, look, last year Fermanagh had a very good start to the league, and as you said, they won 2 games and drew 1, and against Cork they led the whole way from start to finish, and Cork scored a goal with the last play of the game to beat them, and that was a game that really turned it for them. Unfortunately, after losing that game, then a couple of bad defeats after it to Donegal and Laois, and the wheels sort of came off. But they'd put some great foundations in, and they were doing very well. Unfortunately, from last year, they've lost a couple of players, a few more experienced boys that would have been there for a good number of years, and would have really probably stood to them this year in Division 3, especially with the new rules and things. When Anthony's talking about skill level, that's probably the boys that they're losing, that some of those boys that have been there and done it and under pressure can sort of steady the ship for them. So they're gonna have to rely on a few of the younger lads to step up, take a bit more responsibility. Last year probably they suffered against Armagh in the championship, and Armagh put a big pressure on their kick out and pressed them. They were a man down, and they sort of struggled. So this year a lot of kick outs are going to be going long, so there's going to be a lot of teams working on their midfield and their break ball and how they can secure primary possession. It's not going to be as much of this short kickouts getting away. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on with that. And again, by all accounts, Kildare are very strong this year. A very strong forward line. They played down there recently and they're performing well. So that's a tough game for Fermanagh to start with down in Kildare. As much as we beat them last year, I think Kildare are going to be a different proposition this year. So Fermanagh, they have got boys coming back from injury, which is going to be a big boost to them. Dara McGurn there injured all of last year. He's a big presence for them. Jonathan Cassidy at centre back or in cornerback, he's a fantastic player and he missed a lot last year as well. So those two boys are going to be a huge boost to them. And fingers crossed, that unfortunately Division 3, ideally you win every game and you go up, but from experience that doesn't happen. There's bumps in the road. You're gonna suffer a defeat here and there or a draw when you thought you could have won or whatever. So it's how you bounce back from that adversity. So hopefully the boys can handle that and they can come out on the right side of the 7 games. But the teams that are there, Sligo won 4 games last year in Division 3. They're not going to be far away. Kildare are going to be strong. Leitrim with Stephen there as well. They're not going to be a pushover. Stephen knows how to get a team organised and have from first-hand experience of that as well. So I think every game's going to be a battle, and it's going to be hard to call really.
Yeah, I suppose, Gary, in terms of Leitrim, we know making the step up Division 3, and we know Carrick-on-Shannon is a very hard place to go, and Leitrim have been really tough cookie at home. They have know how to play in terms of Leitrim to get results, but on the road, is that what's going to make and break Leitrim's season in terms of their travels this year in Division 3 to try and pick up points in the road? Because realistically, I suppose if the Leitrim want to do what Antrim did and stabilise themselves in Division 3, they're going to have to maybe get a win on the road this year, and that's a tough thing to do for a Division 4 team to promote it, to go to maybe go up to Enniskillen, to Fermanagh, to go down to Ennis, to go to Naas, to get results on the road in this division.
Yeah, and I suppose when you go up the divisions, James, you're kind of looking at your home games essentially, because if you're looking to establish yourself in Division 3, you're thinking, I think over the years, and the lads will agree, I think maybe sometimes 5 points have kept you up in Division 3. So if that's 2 wins and a draw. So if you can target your home games, I think the problem we have in Leitrim again, and we probably timed this badly, is that Carrick-on-Shannon is currently being relayed at the minute. So we're playing our home games out of Ballinamore, Sean, and Hesslands. Now it's a fine surface, but it's probably a place the guys aren't used to playing in too much, maybe bar a bit of club championship and things like that. So you're looking at your home games and maybe creating a bit of a fortress in Carrick-on-Shannon, which, to be fair, we've tended to do over the years. But now we'll be operating out of Ballinamore. I see this year as well that we have our 4. Every other year you alternate, you get 4 games at home and 3 away. So if you were targeting 2 wins at home, you're looking at our first game at home is against Laois. We're well accustomed with Laois. We played each other twice last year in Division 4 and then in the final. And I think I was at both games. We actually beat Laois in Portlaoise, and it was the weather kind of helped us out that day. But when we moved to Croke Park a week or 2 later, the physicality was something I really noticed about the Laois players and their ability to finish. And they're probably a good few years ahead of us under Justin McNulty. So yeah, to answer your question, if you could get an away win along with a home win, and then maybe pick up a draw somewhere along the line, you're giving yourself a chance. But it's quite difficult. If you look at our 4 home games, are Laois, Kildare a couple of weeks later, then you've got Offaly at home, which even with the new manager bounce, you'd probably be targeting them to see could we turn them over. As the lads mentioned, they're in transition a little bit as well under Mickey, and then you have Fermanagh at home. So even Fermanagh and Kildare, the 2 teams that come down, we have them at home. You're kind of thinking even if you do turn up that day, it's going to be a tough ask to beat them. So yeah, look, we're making no illusions, and it's not to play the poor mouth, but we've lost a lot of experience in the off season. So I'd say from a Stephen's perspective, as they've already mentioned there, Eoin mentioned that he'll have the team set up very well. He'll have them drilled, he'll have them organised, and if we can make it dependent on weather, dependent on how the new rules gel, and how referees deal with the conditions and the new rules, we could get a win or 2 early doors. And if you did, you're giving yourself a bit of hope. But look, we'll be putting out a very young side, and if they can gain enough experience this year, you're going back into Division 4 potentially next season with a chance of maybe going straight back up. So as you said, we need to try and get a bit of consistency there, James.
Yeah, I suppose, Kieran, momentum is a great thing in football, and that bit of success, that bit of a bounce. And I suppose Laois got that. We all know what Derry did in terms of that bounce, going down to the basement and going on a journey all the way to the top. And I suppose traditionally, Laois would have seen themselves Division 2, mid Division 2, top of Division 3. So you're making that step back up again from where you would have been in the few years in the past. And I suppose in terms of Laois, is it a step like Antrim did, and maybe another step in the following year, or do Laois think, well, we need to really bounce off this momentum sort of feel and push on while we have the chance? Or do you think it's a case of maybe stabilize first and then push on maybe again?
Yeah, I suppose like the last time we went up from Division 4, we were lucky we got the bounce and went straight up to Division 2, and no doubt, obviously the lads will be hoping to do that again this season. But we've kind of been unfortunate with through injury and maybe travel. We've had a high turnover of players from last year as well. I know, like out of the starting six forwards that played in the Tailteann final, that lined out in the Tailteann final, only two are available now. So we've lost, our talisman over the last few years, Evan O'Carroll, to a cruciate injury in playing in the Interpros in Croke Park, in the Leinster Munster game, or Leinster Connacht game anyway. But yeah, so he's a huge loss. Like, he's our focal point, and when you're talking about the 3v3, like, you'd be targeting him. So it's going to be interesting to see the kind of dynamics that are, formed from the new players who are given their chance, and it's great to see a few of them getting their chances. Then we have, I think, who will really benefit from these new rules as well, is our goalie, Cillian Roach. Like, off the ground, he's a real weapon of a boot. So we'll be looking at him to probably carry us through. Maybe, hopefully, maybe with the new scoring system, you'd be hoping between 4 and 6 points a game. And they could really be the difference. In relation to our fixtures as well, I think if you were going to pick the fixtures, it probably is the order it's coming for us is probably most beneficial, with, like, we've got Leitrim away, tough game, Offaly and in our second game, they're two ones that Laois would have to target to get something out of, and then hopefully let the momentum build after that, because it's really, you're looking at Kildare and Newbridge and a new grounds under lights. Like, that's going to be ferocious. Welcoming in Clare and Antrim. We're probably lucky that we don't have too many travelling games. We've got the longest travel we have is Fermanagh in the last round. So, you'd be hopeful that you might have enough done to be looking up rather than looking down this year coming. And I know from being in there last year, Justin, Ross, they'll have Ross Munley, they'll have the lads, well drilled, and they'll have them well rehearsed on the opposition for sure. And it's just hopefully that those younger lads now can kind of step up and take their chances.
I suppose, coming on to Offaly, we know great joyful scenes, wild celebrations with that under-21 team. But they're probably coming of age now. They're probably, 3 years down the line. A good lot of those sort of guys are Offaly, and Mickey's probably going to look to try and bring 2 or 3 of them, more of them, give them a first-hand experience as well. I suppose success and that winning feeling underage and reaching the climb in a mountain, it's probably got to worth something. And we know the talent is there. You don't win an under-21 All-Ireland. It's not a fluke. But in terms of Offaly, is there great anticipation, excitement that you've transitioned a good lot of that starting 15 into your first team setup? And do you think that's the way Mickey's going to go? He's going to look at that side and see these guys were successful. They have the winning mentality. How many of these guys can I work with?
Yeah, look, I don't think he's going to have a choice. I'd say there's been a big turnover in players in terms of senior lads, I said earlier. Now, look at a number of the under-20 team they're actually established in the team as it is. The likes of Cormac Egan, John Furlong, Lee Pearson, Rory Egan, they've all played championship football with Offaly for the last couple of years. But the flip side, you just like to have them alongside some of the older guys. Like, I think Declan Hogan now was the captain there a couple of years ago. He's ruled out for the league. Peter Cunningham, who's been a mainstay of the team for the last 10, 11 years, he's gone as well. Anton Sullivan's retired, is gone too. So you just like the balance to be right. We're throwing an awful lot of young lads, it seems, into the mix for this year in particular. So it's going to be very interesting. That alongside the rule changes as well. You just like to have that bit more experience. But look, in my experience of playing Division 3, Offaly, actually, funny enough, I'd say out of the last 11 years. They've been in Division 3, 10 years that 11. So we're probably more accustomed than anyone in playing in Division 3. And it's a very, very tough division. I think out of all the divisions, it's probably the most competitive. And even results, you expect some teams to lose or to win. And it just doesn't work out that way at all. I think, look, being honest, Kildare and Fermanagh, they're going to be the front runners, but there's no guarantees. With Kildare, with a young team as well, it's hard to know how they're going to react as well. So look, it is a very, very open division. In terms of Offaly, the expectation is probably balanced, let's say, in the fact that we lost so many players. I know Mickey Hart has come in, but we'd be happy enough, I'd say, just to maintain Division 3 and build. And I'd say a lot of that is going to depend on the first couple of games. If you win your first 2 games, let's say against Sligo and Laois, you're all of a sudden looking up the table. You just probably need to get either a point or 2 points to guarantee your safety. And it does mean an awful lot because it takes the pressure off. If you lose the first 2 games, it's the flip side of that. You're under pressure straight away and you're going to have to pick up points. So it's going to be intriguing to see how it works out. I say, especially for Offaly, them young lads.
I suppose, Martin, coming to Clare, we know they've equipped a good set of forwards, a good set of defenders. But in previous years, Clare always had 2 colossals in the middle of the park that they could go to in Cathal O'Connor and Gary Brennan. They're no longer there at the moment. Brian McNamara is a young midfielder. He's coming through, but he's still very young. And probably last year, Clare maybe got found out in the middle of the park when they made that step up into the Super 8s in terms of that. And I suppose while Peter Keane has got options maybe in terms of forwards this year, a good lot of options pick and maybe options is midfield, you think, where other teams will sort of target Clare on both kickouts and say, listen, that's probably Clare's probably weakness, which has probably been a strength for them for so many years with Gary and Cathal, that maybe midfield is probably the one area that Clare are probably lacking in options.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's an area that we're going to struggle with, as you say, Darren O'Neill and Cathal O'Connor, and these guys are all gone. Gary obviously gone as well. A lot is thrown on top of Brian Mack's shoulders. It's going to be his 3rd, I'm going to guess, campaign, but he's still only 21 years of age. I actually am training his club team for the last 2 years, and he's a brilliant lad. His attitude is excellent. His discipline and his approach to the game is superb. But as I say, he's still 21 years of age. I've heard over the last couple of games that they've had, he's been exceptional. Hopefully he'll be able to lift it a notch. He went through a very bad injury last year. He burst his spleen. So like that, it was only near the end of the campaign with the club last year that I felt he was getting back to his normal self. And hopefully he's going to continue that new energy he's going to have going back this year. You're right, up front we are good. I think obviously with Keelan back and Eoin back is going to strengthen us an awful lot. But now we have to get the ball into them and as fast as we can, I feel. And a lot is going to depend on midfield. Obviously, kickouts are going to determine an awful lot. With the new rules, everyone seems to be saying that everything is going long. It's about win your own ball or at least win the break. Stephen Ryan inside the goal is missing as well. He did his cruciate just before the Donegal game last year. Hasn't come back into the fold. Rumour has it he's actually not coming back to the county level this year. He's going to be a massive loss in between the sticks as well for us. He's a huge amount of experience. He was playing the fly goalkeeper before any new rules came in. I went up to see Offaly last year, a game that we really struggled with, and in the second half we won the game because of the likes of Stephen Ryan coming out. And as I say, we're missing for him from both kickouts and from outfield play in the campaign of 25. So between kickouts and midfield maybe being one of our weaker points or weaker positions, we could struggle there. Kickouts, as I say, is going to be massive for us now to see if we're not winning midfield, what's Peter Keane and his managing team going to come up with to kind of retain possession and move it as fast as we can up the field. So hopefully, as I say, though, I go back to Brian. I'm not ruling him out by any means. He's a fabulous player, fabulous fielder of the ball. As I say, he was only back from a serious injury last year, and I feel that actually this year now could be his year to excel.
And coming to you, Niall, in terms of Antrim, same probably thing would be said about Antrim. Really tigerish defenders, really forwards on their day that can kick up scores. But maybe in the past few years, maybe they've struggled in the same area in terms of kick outs and midfield. Of Clare have struggled, and maybe last year as well in Division Three that you're in an awful lot of really tight games. But discipline was something that probably came back to haunt you. And how important is that to maybe learn from those sort of mistakes this year? Because dare I say, a team can't afford with all these new rules as well to lose men or send bans or red cards. This year it's going to be even more costly.
Yeah, absolutely. With the three men staying up, I think it's going to be critical that you've got 50 men on the field to fill spaces, to fill gaps. So no, I agree. Maintaining good discipline is going to be critical to the teams going forward. In terms of Antrim, I think that every team will still have a really strong defensive structure, regardless of the rule changes going forward. I think that's a fundamental of any good team, good footballing team at the moment. From an attacking perspective, I guess I looked at the teams that qualified from Division 3 last year. You had Down and Westmeath. So Down had last year's top scorer in Division 3, and Pat Haven scored 45 points. And Westmeath had 7 of the top 30 scores. So, in terms of qualifying from Division 3, you need a really potent attacking front line. I think Antrim need to unearth some more attacking quality. They've been over-reliant probably on place ball over the last number of years. Dominic McInhill from Ross has probably been the person, the go-to man there. So, they do have young forwards coming through. Ryan McQuillan's showing bits last year in the championship and this year in the Sigerson campaign with Queens, but they probably need a better spread of scores. I think some of the lads there mentioned as well about that ability to defend one-on-one, and that's something I'm really intrigued to see come back into the game and see how that develops throughout the course of the year. For me, and I think the guys in Antrim would say as well, there's still probably a problem area in 3, which is a key position, is a very specific position at county level, and Antrim haven't addressed that over the last couple of years. They've tried and tested a couple of different lads there. So, the lads here talked about some of the attacking forwards that are in Division 3 this year, and you can name players from across each of the counties. They're very strong. So, looking forward to see the one-on-one defending, probably an area that Antrim need to improve upon, and hopefully we'll unearth some more attacking scores from play as well.
Okay, guys, I'm just going to come around now to get your sort of viewpoints on the division. I'm going to start with Anthony. Anthony, in terms of Division 3 last year, I suppose it was a 3-horse race. It went down to the last wire, but those 3-horse teams were cut themselves away from the rest of the pack from a bit of the early stage. Clare, Down and Westmeath were shooting it out. Maybe after 5 rounds, it was fairly obvious that it was going to be those 3 that were shooting it out for promotion. And likewise, maybe after 4 rounds, it was fairly obvious that maybe Wicklow and Limerick were heading for the trapdoor. We're looking at Division 3 this year. Do you think that maybe we're going to go into the 6th round? We're going to maybe have 4 teams in the mix-up for promotion, and maybe that likewise at the bottom that no one's going to get cut adrift like Limerick and Wicklow were last year? Do you think last year the division was a bit more separated in terms of the way we had a cluster in the middle, but the top 3 distanced themselves from the rest fairly early on, and Wicklow and Limerick struggled fairly on and they were cut ashore? Do you think it's going to be much more bunched up this year going into the final rounds?
Yeah, you'll probably have something similar at the top, I'd say, James. If you look at 8 of the managers that are there, 4 of them are quite new to intercounty football. Well, not the intercounty football, to the teams that they're over, but they'll certainly get a bounce from their teams. You're looking at Offaly, you're looking at Kildare, Leitrim and Clare, So Clare and Kildare, I think, are probably 2 of the strongest teams in that division. Again, Kildare would have played Clare in Division 2 2 years ago down in Ennis, and we would have struggled against them. We're lucky to get out with a point win. And, they're going to be set up very well under Peter. Top 4, I'm hoping Kildare will be in that top 4. To me, you're probably looking at Kildare, Fermanagh, Clare will certainly be there, and maybe Laois. Laois are quite a strong side of some good footballers there as well. But it's probably going to be something similar that you seen last year with 3 or 4 coming to the top, and any of those probably 4 that I mentioned, 2 of them will go through.
Same question for you, Owen. I won't repeat myself. The sort of same question, the same sort of scenario. Do you think it's going to be similar to last year, or do you think it's going to be a lot more bunched up this year?
Well, I certainly think going on last year's Division Three, like Clare won 5 games last year and missed out in promotion on the last day, and it's very hard to see with those guys coming back like Cleary and Sexton and that up front, and McMahon as well, able to shoot from range. It's very hard to see how they're not going to be in the top, 2 or 3 again this year. So I think them, hopefully Fermanagh in that, and obviously Kildare are going to be very strong. But again, like we mentioned, Sligo and that too. So I think it will be a bit, it could be 4 teams fighting it out for the top, and then yeah, like at the bottom, it's it's a tough division, and it sometimes can change very quickly week on week. So it's going to be hard to call. And as I said, like as from a Fermanagh perspective, I think if we can finish ahead of Clare, I think we'll be in a good position.
Coming to you, Gary, how do you start to look on it in terms of obviously maintaining Division 3 is the key perspective for Leitrim, but how do you look at the top end of the division and dare I say the bottom end? Maybe the top end first. How do you look at it?
Yeah, I think James, you're looking at obviously the 2 teams again. Everybody's mentioned them already, so a bit of repetitiveness. But Kildare and Fermanagh, I think Clare with the players that are coming back are obviously going to be in the mix. But the one that I think will surprise a lot, and not surprise anyone, everyone knows they're well capable, is Sligo. They're trending the right way. Clare, Strandhill, when you look back at the match against Coolad, they were unlucky in a lot of respects. You'll have Niall Murphy coming back in, full of confidence as well if he gets a bit of a break. So they're well able to shoot from distance. Sligo have a lot of tasty forwards. So I think they'll be up there with your Fermanaghs, your Clares, and your Kildares who've already been mentioned. I think then it's probably ourselves down the bottom. Lads are probably being kind there, but we're probably going to struggle for much part of this league, and it's just purely based on the turnover of players we've had and the amount of experience we've lost. I think based on what Kieran was saying as well, I wasn't aware that Evan O'Carroll had done the cruise ship. He's a huge loss. So I think there's yourself. One minute you could be looking over your shoulder, and next thing you pick up a win, and you're kind of not too far outside the top 2. So it's a really competitive division, and it's good. So one of that group then with Laois, Offaly, probably potentially fighting it out with us for we'll be nailing down one of those spots, I'm afraid. But if we've 2 really good under 20 teams that have come through, James, in the last couple of years now, we'd be hoping they would have been in there paired with a lot of the experience we've had, but they're going to be thrown into the mix now a lot this year. So if they can garner enough experience, we'll be hopefully fighting again next year to come back into Division 3. But yeah, bar what I've just mentioned there, I think it's going to be very tight. Anyone can take points off anybody, and that's the beauty of it. And that's why you'll find a lot of the times during the Allianz League Sunday shows, the Division 3 stuff is normally the most exciting of the whole division. So yeah, let it commence.
Coming to Kieran, obviously the bounce feeling, that momentum, obviously they say capitalise it when the going is good. How do you view it from a Laois perspective? You can look at it with a sort of neutral eyes now. You're not inside the camp anymore. How do you start to look at it in terms of the top end and the bottom end?
Yeah, looking at it through my teary eyes. But no, I think just from experience there, momentum is key, and especially in such a tight division. I think Laois really needs to target the Leitrim game and the Offaly game to try and get that bounce and hopefully build, especially trying to build the confidence among, a relatively inexperienced group compared to what was there for maybe a few years. We've got like Mark Timmins there, a warrior for the last while, and I'm not sure if he's involved or not yet. I don't think he's been back yet, but he's a linchpin in the defence there, and just brings so many people into the game with him that he will be a big loss. We've kind of locked horns with most of the counties over the last few seasons. Probably Clare is the most distant that we've played, and I've been impressed with Sligo, Antrim. I know we beat them in in the semi-final of the Tailteann last year, but I was impressed with those all the way up. And when Niall was saying there's a few more men back, I think they could be a dark horse as well to kind of get up into the top two. But I would be hopeful that Kildare obviously will be there. I think Fermanagh have been a great team, and it's always difficult to go up to Enniskillen to play Fermanagh. And then there's the Offaly. It'll be interesting to see how Offaly are and how Laois are in relation to the new kind of panels. And it's going to be very, very difficult. But I do see, say, Kildare, Clare, and Fermanagh kind of topping it, and Sligo not far forward, and Laois in there as well. So it's going to be fascinating, and I can see it going down to round 4 or round 5 there, before it's really clear who's looking in the mix.
Paul, you must be loving this conversation. Nobody talking up Offaly for promotion. Dare I say, the pressure is off, dare I say, in terms of even with Mickey Hart, maybe people underestimate what he did with Louth. I mean, Louth were, dare I say, they were in a very bad state before he arrived there in terms of what he was, the transformation. And I suppose, look at the platform he put in place that Ger Brennan has to work off now. Is it too much to expect that immediate factor? Because he knows how to get a team rolling, and he knows how to, dare I say, with Louth, to make that journey up the divisions. He's proven it in the past. But Offaly, the talk, people not talking you up, people saying you could be in the relegation place. Is that a nice place to be in terms of maybe the pressure is off, that nobody's talking about you?
Well, I'd certainly talk us down as well. Look, in relation to Mickey Hart, in fairness, even with Derry, I think it's lost on a lot of people that Derry actually won the league last year as well. I know their championship didn't go to plan at all, but anywhere Mickey Hart's been, he's made a strong print there on the team, and Louth is a perfect example. Louth have gone from strength to strength. They're now competitive in Division 2 and probably looking to get into Division 1. So look, he will bring experience. He's going to bring an awful lot to the table for Offaly. There's no question about that. And it's great for the younger lads in particular to have the experience of Mickey Hart there. Look, the reality is we are very young this year. There's no point in saying otherwise. But looking back on the results last year, I know Martin mentioned the Clare and Offaly game. Offaly were actually 9 points up in that game in the last 10 minutes. And lost by, I think, a point, having missed the penalty at the last kick of the game. So these games do come down to a point or two, and a bit of luck is going to have a bearing on some of the fixtures as well. I think Gary mentioned Sligo. For me, Sligo are definitely in the mix here as well. I think they've been building brilliantly in the last couple of years, even with the club now going well as well. Like Kulis Rander this year, that's a massive plus for him as well. So there's going to be a lot of confidence with Sligo. Kildare, there's a lot expected of Brian Flanagan as well going in with Kildare senior. So look, it's going to be very, very competitive, and these games are going to come down to the wire. It's going to be a point or two swinging either way, and it's going to be the difference. I think, as I said, Kildare, Fermanagh, and Sligo for me are going to be at the top of that. And then look, I think Clare are going to be thereabouts as well. But it is a very, very competitive division.
I suppose, Martin, we've talked maybe about the areas that Clare are strong and maybe weak at as well, but we know there's an awful lot of talented forwards in this division as well. But maybe Clare, looking upon it, we all talked about Gary Brennan for years and about what a great player he was, but maybe less talk is maybe known about his younger brother at fullback, Killian Brennan, an elite defender, sort of a guy that can put the shackles on really an awful lot of top forwards and mark them out of the game as well. And I suppose Killian's used to doing that at a higher level at Division 2 and maybe like Kerry and Cork and these sort of games as well. Do you think maybe that's maybe when Killian, the prospect of maybe Division 3, that maybe some teams will be looking at maybe a guy in their inside line to do a lot of damage, that Clare have that really full back that really can nullify out an ace attacker? Do you think that's something that's going to play effect in Division 3 as well, to have maybe probably one of the strongest full backs in the division?
Yeah, Killian has been unbelievable over the last number of years. As you say, probably under the shadow of his brother Gary for a long time. Even though we are a very young squad, a lot of that squad did play for a number of years at Division 2. We got relegated for Division 3 last year. But even though we lost a lot of stalwart and retirements players that were there a long time. A lot of that group still had been involved at Division 2 level. So I think that's going to stand to him again for this year. Last year, new manager in, a lot of new players agreed, even though they had a bit of experience from the last previous few years. I think that stood to them to nearly qualify last year. As I said earlier, I think it was probably a year too early. This year, with a new manager in again, and great to have some of his experience as Peter Keane involved. I think we're obviously hoping, and with a few new lads back, for promotion. Stephen Ryan is going to be a huge loss to, as I said earlier as well. Stephen and Killian would have had a great relationship built up over the last number of years, great understanding between the two of them. So Killian is not going to have that support maybe that he had over the last couple of years with Stephen there. But his experience will filter hopefully through a lot of our new backs that are coming in, because it's going to be so important, as we all know, with the new rules with 3-on-3. I'm sure Killian is going to be one of the main men that's going to be left back there, and his communication and his experience back there with the new lads will be hugely needed. I agree with a lot of the lads there as well. I think there's going to be kick of a ball in games this year, going down through it for ourselves. We have Antrim, our first game away. I was delighted to hear that Niall saying there that they're struggling with forwards up there, which is great to hear, because we feel that they're the kind of games we're going to have to be targeting. Our first two games are Antrim away and Leitrim at home. Two very important games for Clare if they're talking about promotion. And then in the middle of it, we have Sligo and Kildare. I think Sligo, to be honest with you, the dark horses, I think they're going to have a big say in this Division 3 campaign. But for me, I think we're going to have to either beat Antrim or beat Sligo, should I say, away, or Kildare, which we have at home. If we're talking about promotion, we're going to have to beat one of those. And lastly out, then we have Offaly at home. Again, we don't know where anyone's going to be, but if all the statements that the boys are making and that Offaly are going to be fighting to stay in there, well, that'll be great for us, and we'll probably need to try to target that home game as well. For Clare, we have four home games, which is, I think, very important as well. New rules are going to come into it. Bravery with going forward, bravery with taking the 2 points. I actually was talking to an ex-colleague, an ex-player, a friend of mine today, and we were just saying that if an opportunity came for a 2-pointer at the end of the game, to either 2 points to win or to take your inside free for a point, what would you do? Would you take the draw or would you go for the win? And I think it's even going to come down to fine lines like that in this league campaign. There's going to be so many games that are going to be really tight, and the odd 2-pointer here and there could be the winning and losing.
And before I bring in Niall on that, Martin, just in the lower end of the division as well, you've talked about the top. What would you think about the bottom end of the division before I bring in Niall in terms of that?
As I said there, any game, as long as it's not clear, Jim, I don't know. I don't care after that. I honestly think it's going to be the big games that are going to be tossed of a kind of silly decision, like a referee. We haven't touched on referees and the whole discipline thing. Referees are going to have a bearing on it as well, because every referee, I feel, are going to have their own take on the rule. If a fella is going to hand the football back and jump back, or if he rolls it back and says something to the referee, all of a sudden is that a 50-meter brought forward? So even a referee's decision could weigh up a result. But as you say, the bottom of the pile, as long as it's not clear, I don't mind.
And coming to you, Niall, I suppose you will have that sort of equipment as well, as long as Antrim aren't in the bottom of the pile, you won't mind. But you probably love that talk from Martin as well, talking up Clare's chances going up to Casement Park in Belfast. No better way for Anthony McEntee to make a statement and to get the ground running for Antrim to kick off a campaign in terms of that. And obviously one will feel that the home games, there's an awful lot of counties that are going to have to make big trips to Antrim in terms of travel this year as well. Do you think that's going to be an advantage for you in terms, and you really, if you want to be in promotion, that 100% record at home is going to be pivotal for Antrim?
Yeah, I wish our home games were played at Casement Park. Unfortunately, it's still under construction and decisions are still being made. But look, the lads have played at Corrigan the last number of years. It's a stone's throw away from Kearson Park in West Belfast. Um, they've done well there over the last couple of years, but for me, I think the way the division has been drawn in terms of your home and away fixtures is going to be key. It hasn't favoured Antrim, and this year they play 3 home games. Martin's mentioned the first Clare game, Leitrim, Sligo at home, Offaly, Fermanagh, Laois, Kildare away. So, I think, and it's always been the case, the team that's had a favourable advantage in terms of home fixtures tends to be at an advantage, I guess. I also think momentum is key, and it could have been Kieran mentioned it already. I think the team that gets off to a good start, they have that knock-on impact within the first couple of games that can really work in their favour. But saying that on the other hand, because the division is so competitive, I do agree with the rest of the lads. There'll be a kick of the ball between a lot of these games. I also think that the way the coaches implement the new rules is going to be really important. And just looking across the caliber of coaching in Division 3 this year, it's really, really strong. So Peter Keane, Stephen Poacher, Tony Mack, I think still in Sligo, Mickey Hart, Kieran Donnelly, Justin McNulty, and Kildare have a new manager in as well. So look, how they implement the new rules over the first couple of games will be interesting, and how they utilise that coaching ability. And just to finish off, I also think Sligo are a real dark horse. The Clare Standhill impact this year winning Connacht. I think Sligo under 20s won 2 of the last 3 Connacht championships, which is incredible. To my understanding, they hadn't won one before that. So yeah, tough to say in terms of who's going to go down, but it'll be the usual customers. You'll have your Kildares, your Clares. I think Sligo will be thereabouts, and yeah, it's a toss of the coin between the rest.
Okay, guys, we're nearly out of time, so just finally to wrap up, I'm going to ask one sentence, and maybe you can reply there. I'll ask one question, maybe you can reply with a one-sentence answer there, because we're caught for time and we're going to wrap it up now. So, Anthony, the question, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to ask it to everyone here. I'm going to start with you. What would be a successful 2025 for Kildare?
I think promotion from Division 3 and maybe an All-Ireland series will be quite successful.
Coming to you, Eoin, what would be a successful 2025 for Fermanagh?
Yeah, I think promotion from Division 3 would be a fantastic start. And after that, if it's Tailteann Cup, I think they're looking to get to Croke Park for a sort of Tailteann Cup final stages, at least.
Coming to you, Gary Reynolds, for Leitrim, what would be a successful 2025 for Leitrim?
Yeah, major success would be staying up in Division 3, but if we can go down fighting and pick up a couple of points and a few wins, I think that's a positive, and then put together a couple of wins in the Tailteann Cup and see how far we can go. And yeah, very young side, so build for next year. So that'll be a success for us.
Kieran, Lillis, for Laois perspective, what would be a successful 2025?
Yeah, I think making sure we stay in Division 3 would be a great success, and getting back to Croker again. Hopefully going one step further than last year would be super.
Perfect. Paul McConway for Offaly, what would be a successful 2025 for Offaly?
Look, the ultimate success would be getting out of Division 3, and then again just competing in the later ends of the Tailteann Cup as well. Similar again, yeah, that'll be a huge success for Offaly.
Martin Daly, for a Clare perspective, what would be a successful 2025 for Clare?
Obviously, they're going to target the league if they can and get promoted. To me personally, I don't think it's the be all and in all. I think it's important to learn as much as you can from the league, get the rules as fast as you can, be more prepared, I think, for championship. In championship, we've Tipperary in the first round, and the winners of Limerick and Waterford. So obviously you're targeting the Munster final, and I think success would be to be a lot more competitive. We've been in the Munster final for the last 1 or 2 years in a row, and to be a lot more competitive in the Munster final, I think would be success.
Niall McKeever, for an Antrim perspective, what would be a successful 2025?
Success would be a championship win. They've been drawn the short straw with the All-Ireland winners this year, so it's going to be difficult. But yeah, promotion and more days out in Croke Park.
That concludes our look ahead to the 2025 Allianz League Division 3 football programme. I would like to thank our guests just there this evening, and just a shout out to Sligo in terms of that as well. We wish them a prosperous 2025 in League and Championship. So I would like to thank my guests, Anthony Rainbow representing Kildare, Eoin Donnelly representing Fermanagh, Gary Reynolds representing Leitrim, Kieran Lillis representing Laois, Paul McConway representing Offaly, Martin Daly representing Clare, and Niall McKeever representing Antrim. That concludes this week's look ahead to 2025 Allianz Football League. We wish all the counties the best of luck. May it be a successful year for all of them, and may it go down to the wire and in terms of promotion and relegation. Stay safe, take care, and God bless.